Hey, it's Drybear, and today I wanted to teach you a little bit about using your Ornithopter to make solo runs to the deep desert. So if you're new to Dune Awakening, most of the first 5 tiers of the game will be earnable through the Haga Basin, which is primarily a safe zone. However, a lot of the best resources and everything that you need to get to tier 6, the highest tier in the game, is going to be in the deep desert. However, the downside with the deep desert is that it is a PvP flagged area, and there's a lot to know about how to survive in the deep desert, where to find resources, and what you're going to want to bring. So today I want to talk all about that. So if you're someone who's like me and just enjoys solo play, or just want to take expeditions out to the deep desert so you can farm titanium, stravidium, getting a lot of spice, things that you need in order to craft the best gear, equipment, and vehicles and manufacturing in the game, then you can absolutely do it. The deep desert is soloable. You just have to know what you're doing when you go in. So what you're going to want to do to bring into the deep desert, obviously, is you will need an Ornithopter. So your first Ornithopter is going to be tier 4 with aluminum. So you need to make sure you have an Ornithopter ready to go, because you will be using this to fly into the deep desert as your entry point. So in order to get to the deep desert, all you have to do is reach the outside of Haga Basin. Anywhere where there is an out exit to Haga Basin allows you to go to the overworld map. At the world map, you'll be able to travel to any area, including the deep desert. So once you got an Ornithopter, just fly out to the edge of Haga Basin, or if you're in a town, just kind of grab the town, go to the exit, get to the overworld map. Then once there, you want to head to the top left or the northwest side of the world map, and that is where you'll find the deep desert. It has 3 entry points, which doesn't really matter all that much because all of the entry areas for the deep desert are PvE safe outside of the crashed ships. So once you enter into the deep desert is this first row. It is a 9x9 grid. The A row, or the bottom row of the deep desert, is PvE only. It's not like overly flagged as PvP except for the ships that are there. So if you're in the safe zone, you're up on the shield wall, you're good to go. That's where people build bases and set up like outposts for hoarding all their materials and resources so they can ferry it back to Haga Basin before the reset happens on Tuesday. Now, when it comes to soloing the deep desert, your 3 options for Ornithopter are the heavy Ornithopter or the carrier, the medium Ornithopter or the assault, and the light Ornithopter and the scout. And honestly, you have lots of really great options with the medium, like the assault Ornithopter or the carrier Ornithopter. You get more storage capacity, you get the ability to run multiple extension modules, right? Like the light scout Ornithopter, you have to choose between rockets or storage. You have like the booster can be kind of awkward sometimes, depending on how, like what mark you're talking about. However, I'm going to recommend for solo play that you actually do bring the scout Ornithopter, the light Ornithopter, mainly because it has the fastest gliding speed. So if you look at the highest tier, the tier 6, which is Plastanium products, if you look at the scout Ornithopter, the gliding speed here is 180 kilometers an hour. The assault gliding speed, if we go to the wings, is 160, so 20 less. And then the heavy Ornithopter on this is going to be 140, so again, another 20 less. And this matters a lot because realistically, again, if you're running like a heavy or medium Ornithopter, you're probably going in a group, you're looking for like dogfights, and you also, with the heavy Ornithopter, you're going to be carrying vehicles like the Sandcrawler, so you can actually get more resources. The medium has a lot of options. What's great about the medium is that when you get the storage container for it, it ends up bringing you a lot more value because you can carry more with it. It might actually be Mark V that we're looking for here. So yeah, you can see that the storage here is 1,000 volume, whereas for the Scout Ornithopter, you're looking at 500 for that specifically. So you're actually a little bit more limited on that. So you can get more storage, more external components for the assault and medium, and you can also just do a lot more with the heavy Ornithopter. However, I think when you're playing as a solo player, your best bet is to always run away if you can. If you get into a situation where it's a 1 versus 1 and you can use the rocket launcher, it can be quite useful. And another downside of the lighter version of it is that you have less of your hull HP. So like the parts on your Ornithopter can take less damage before they get damaged. However, realistically, if any, like your locomotive module gets damaged or you get caught in a really bad spot, as soon as that damage happens, you're screwed anyways. anyways, and if you're outnumbered, you're not really going to win that fight regardless. So we'll talk a little bit about how to like save yourself when you get ambushed too hard, or you're caught between a rock and a hard place, quite literally, and we'll talk about how to deal with sandstorms as well. But I would recommend just using the Scout Ornithopter, because when push comes to shove, you're better off just leaving. Just hit that glide, use the Scout Ornithopter speed to get away. The rocket system in the game is not super complicated. It doesn't really have great aiming, and it's kind of hard to hit a moving target that's going really fast. But you can see here, I got, I wasn't paying attention. Someone snuck up on me. They had a rocket launcher. I had storage. And then once, one of my wings was damaged and my locomotive got damaged, it was over. I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to run to, and we're going to lose everything that we have on there for that. So the faster you can go, the faster you can escape, the faster you can cover ground, the better. And I would recommend just using the Scout Ornithopter if you're going solo. Now, when you're going to the deep desert as a solo player, I think what you're going to want to farm the most of is going to be 3 primary resources. The first is going to be spice, because the spice plumes and events happen a lot more in the deep desert than they do in Haga Basin, and in some cases can be a lot more quantity as well, especially if you get the granddaddy, the ringmouth worm to spawn. This is going to just be where you're making all of your spice melange and getting all that sorted and processed, which is going to help you progress into tier 6, and also will help you with the Landsrad as well. And then the other 2 options are going to be titanium and stravidium. You will need a medium chemical refinery, or actually I think you can even do it on the normal chemical refinery. No, you need the medium. So you need to go to the medium chemical refinery, and that's where you process all your stravidium mass into the stravidium fiber. Once you have that, then you can go over and you can process that into plastinium or plastanium, and that allows you to buy into tier 6 as well. So titanium, stravidium, and the spice are going to be the biggest things as well. If it does happen and you see a crashed ship, they are worth grabbing. There are a lot of worms in the deep desert, but it's so big that they end up giving you a lot more time to breathe. So if you really, get the opportunity and see a crashed ship, this is going to get you all of your like tier 6 components, like mechanical components, like the extra pumps, the calibers, the servox, all that stuff will come from the crash ships. And on the crash ships, you will find a relatively small amount of spice sand, but there will be spice sand on these as well, which is easy to pick up. So when you see a crash ship, you can just jump on it. Remember not to use your suspensor belt if you can help it. Just get to the panels, scan them, get them open up, and grab the materials that are inside of it. If you see a spice plume in the distance, approach with caution. Usually when I see a spice plume, I'll go towards it to see that maybe I get lucky and there's no one else there. And so I usually will do a full 360, check to see if anything's there. The beauty of the deep desert is that it's relatively quiet most of the time, which means if someone's flying in an ornithopter or doing anything, they will make a lot of noise, and it's easy to hear them on their approach. And so if you don't hear anyone, you don't see anyone, drop down, grab the spice. These small plumes are usually going to be your best bet when you're playing solo, because it is going to be very quick and easy. If you have a tier 5 or tier 6 compactor, you can snap it up real fast, toss it in your ship, and fly away before you have any confrontation or anyone's hanging out around you. And then a lot of what you're going to be doing is farming the stravidium and titanium. So you want to go to the rock formations out in the deep desert. I don't believe any of this spawns in the safe area in row A, but anything beyond that out in the deep desert, you'll find the stravidium and the titanium hanging out here in ore areas. You will need, I believe, a Mark V cut array in order to cut these, but once you get the Mark V cut array, which should just be duraluminum, you can just get it, grab everything, store it away, grab all those extra pieces. You can see even from the crash ships, I'm able to get all these extra plasteel plates and, advanced machinery and things like that, grab it and get moving. Now, if you want to, you can set up an outpost in the safe area, like the bottom row A for the deep desert. A lot of people do this as a staging area, especially if they have a group, they can just build up extra storage there. Just remember that on Tuesday morning, everything wipes in the deep desert, so you want to grab any materials you have left over in the deep desert and ferry them out to Haga Basin. And then after the Coriolis storm strikes, you can bring it back into the deep desert and drop that down in there as well. Now let's talk about flight, because this is a very important aspect to managing your ornithopter, and even more so in the deep desert. So I'm going to do this one live just to show. So when your ornithopter is here, you want to make sure you're always in good condition. You can check this by going to manage vehicle and check all the durations here. The biggest thing is that your wings will constantly get wear and tear because they're flapping in the air all the time, and you want to make sure that you land land often to repair these, because again, if you get ambushed and someone breaks even just one wing, that's usually enough for you to be so slow that you can't escape anymore. So keep these topped up at all times, and also just keep an eye on things like your generator and your engine, as that will make a big difference in you being able to escape. So when you have your Ornithopter and you're just chilling, your engine will be on by normal, and depending on which Ornithopter you're running, that will limit your speed, and you are your slowest when you have your engine on. Just like in the movies, your goal is to glide as much as possible. So managing your glide and learning to glide correctly not only allows you to get in and out of the deep desert faster and more efficiently and gather the materials that you're looking for, but most importantly, learning to glide is how you will survive dogfights and escape from group conflict if it ever does happen to you. So let's talk about this just so we're all on the same page. When you're flying your Ornithopter and your engine is on, you can disable it by going into vulture mode. So you look just below my head, underneath on these key bindings there, you go to vulture mode with shift. This will start your glide. Engine will turn off and you'll start gliding. If you look down in the middle of the screen, you can see I'm going at about 180, 170 kilometers per hour. You can see this on the actual wing of the Ornithopter as well. So if we go here without crashing, hopefully, you can actually go here and just look at the wing. It tells you what the glide speed is. So the Mark IV is going to be 170, Mark VI is up to 180, so you can actually get a lot of glide speed out of this. However, your altitude control and how you manage the glide takes a lot of practice, and getting it right is super important. But this is what I would recommend for using the Ornithopters. You can see. So in the middle of the screen, you see that line that exists there. It's got a line with a little chevron in the middle, line across. That's your horizon line. You'll notice that when I'm looking up and down on that line, we can even zoom in a little bit so you can see it. So you see that line in the middle? No matter where I pitch, the line is always there. That's your horizon line, and that is your flat even. That's how you know whether you're right up against the horizon or not. This is how you're going to manage your speed effectively as well. You'll notice that when I move my reticle up or below, it tells me how far below or above I am from the horizon line. So when you go into a glide, you want to make sure you understand what the top glide speed is for your Ornithopter loadout, and you want to be at that at all times if possible. So you'll notice that when I have this reticle here, it's a super confusing layout, but just equal to horizon is with the dot being pretty close to the top of the chevron there. You would think it would be like making a diamond shape, but it's not. You actually just want to be here or so for getting the flat horizon speed, and that makes you so you don't lose altitude. When you first start going into vulture mode, I would try to drop it as low as you can get it to get a lot of speed built up real fast. And then once you approach your maximum gliding speed, that's when you want to bring your reticle closer to the horizon line. Now, what some people will tell you to do is they'll tell you to go like this and just do flat equal to horizon. You're not losing altitude. I'm actually going to recommend something different. I think you should be a little bit lower than that. Usually when I'm gliding, I tend to be around here. So basically where the bottom chevron on your reticle makes a complete diamond with the top chevron of the horizon line. And since this is like more, flat elevation, if you go a little bit lower, it means you'll slowly lose elevation and you'll be at a very slight decline, like for descension, like actually descending. The reason I like doing this is because if you're right on horizon, you won't lose altitude, but you'll slowly lose speed over time. And I'm not a huge fan of losing speed when I'm going, so usually I'll go into vulture mode, aim straight down, get speed, and then scoot back up, and then we'll go to, it's hard to see, even hard for me to see, but just a little bit below. And you'll notice that, like, if you go just below that line, you will slowly lose altitude. So if I'm looking at my altitude, it's like 4, 3, 2, 1. It's very minimal. It's a small amount that you're doing. So you want to make sure you're maintaining that speed with a slight decline. However, you want to learn to maneuver while you're in a glide as well. It'll save you a lot of fuel, but it also allow you to move quicker to avoid combat. So what you'll want to do is just get really comfortable with that. The big thing about moving when you're gliding is that exaggerated movements are very important. So to bank, to turn, I really got to yank my camera to the right, or I got to yank my camera to the left, or I got to go way down or way up. Like, you really have to exaggerate that movement until you get the angle that you're looking for. And you are full momentum here. If you have the elevation, you can go straight down again, and then you can regain speed, and then you can see like we sped up a bunch, and then we can kind of coast on that speed. You can turn and bank, and you actually get a lot of freedom from that. Learning to do this while you're playing will be a huge boon for you in the deep desert, because you can see even right now, you can actually just turn and glide around. If you ever feel like you're going to crash like right there, just turn the engine on, you'll regain control very quickly, and then you can go right back into a glide as well. But this will save you in combat situations, being able to move quickly. Now, once you're being hunted and you're in trouble, I would recommend not going into it in a straight line, right? Because even if you're faster than them, in some cases, like right here, I would went in a straight line because I thought it was far enough away, but you can see that that was not the case. They're able to go into a vulture and catch up a little bit with their rocket pod, and then, you don't want to be going in a straight line. And that's when that banking maneuver helps a lot, because you can actually get some movement side to side to avoid being shot at from that perspective. And the banking will also allow you to kind of tank the rockets in the right spot. So let's actually watch that one hit again. You'll notice that, like, because I'm going in a straight line, it's easy for him to keep rockets on me, but my big mistake in this case is turning to the side. So you see how he turned to the side there, and he hit a wing right when I did that. And again, as soon as locomotion's broken and you lose a wing, it's over. You're pretty much grounded at that point, just because you're not going to be able to move away. So being able to move side to side is very useful. Another trick I can teach you as well, one that I've learned more and more with more practice, is to use the free look camera. So while you're flying, you can actually hold right click to be able to look around without changing the orientation of your ornithopter. This is useful for just looking to see what's around you. And also while you're gliding, by the way, you want to use this free look camera to just scope out spice fields or anything that's going on, right? So like once you're going in a straight line, you can just look around to see what's going on. But also the free look camera allows you to make very sudden movements, which is useful as well. So for example, if I'm staying level at the horizon line, I can free look to a very extreme angle, vulture, and then let go of the free look, and you can see I dive straight down really fast. This is also useful for banking as well, if you really need to bank. And in some cases, if you get really good at doing this, you can do some crazy, like, on the point turns. So we free look where it's not looking, and then we let go, and it's gonna, and you can do that while gliding as well. Look around and then let go, and you can get some like these crazy motions that allow you to avoid being shot at. You really don't want like smooth movement if someone's after you. You want to be able to move quickly at top speed, but also make crazy adjustments while you're flying as well. Now, if you really get into a bind, you want to take advantage of the protection systems that exist in Dune Awakening, and that is going to be with the fact that unless there's a PvP event going on, which we haven't had any since launch, you will be able to keep your tools and equipment when you die. So what you want to do is that if you feel like you're getting ganked on, you can very easily just store your vehicle, and if you die, you'll respawn at the front of the deep desert with everything, and then you can just respawn your ornithopter and drop it. And yes, that means that if there's anything in your inventory, like ship inventory, you can't store it. You might have to land really quick, dump the storage, and then store it. And then, if you're going to get ganked, just let them take you, and then respawn and get that ornithopter. Now, if you do lose the ornithopter, which has happened to me, don't fret. There is actually a pilot taxi service in the deep desert. It looks like this. It currently for me is in A5 on the northern side of it, near the exit of the shield wall. But if you're in a bind, you lose your ornithopter and you don't have any guildmates or anything, you're playing completely solo, you don't have a way to get back to it, you have two options. You can either go to the ornithopter pilot and buy a taxi service back to Haga Basin, or you can choose to jump off a cliff or die to dehydration and choose to respawn back at your base. Anytime you choose to respawn at a different zone than the one you're in, it will kill everything. You'll lose all your gear, all your equipment, everything. That's a last resort. But like right here in A5, you'll find a pilot that you can use as a taxi service to get you back to it. So don't fret. If you lose the ornithopter, you can get back if you really need to. The next thing to worry about is going to be sandstorms. This is going to be a really big thing for you, because when you're super deep out into the deep desert, you're 15, 20 kilometers out from the safe zone, and you're just grabbing materials and titanium, stravidium, that sort of thing, and a sandstorm rolls through, you have a couple options to deal with it, but you definitely don't want to fly through it. You'll take about maybe 40 to 60% durability on all your parts if you fly through a sandstorm. Most ornithopters can survive one sandstorm, but certainly can't survive two. And again, you're damaging the parts, so if someone comes along and tries to take you out of the sky, you really don't want to be stuck there. So The game is super straightforward. To survive a sandstorm, you just need to be sheltered status, which is the first level of protected status, which you can get as long as there's like really any overhang above you at all. And so what I do anytime a sandstorm rolls through, especially if I have a full like Ornithopter storage, which means it's tons of materials, I can't store it, there's nothing I can do, is you just need to find any overhang and just shove your Ornithopter in there until it fits and you get the sheltered status. So here's one example. You can see there's like a tiny little alcove here. I'm just going to take my Ornithopter. There's a big sandstorm coming and I'm just going to ram it in there. You don't take a lot of damage at low speeds just running into collision, but you just got to shove it in there. You can see in the bottom right, it turns sheltered. So as soon as the Ornithopter goes sheltered, you just shove it in there, get that sheltered status, and then stay there until the sandstorm goes away. Luckily, there's tons of alcoves that you can use. And even in some cases of the PvP areas like the crashed ships, you can just go to the very like outside of the ship and just go under the underhang, shove your Ornithopter in there, crouch down, and then wait till the sandstorm passes. Another thing to be aware of is you can bring Thumpers. Thumpers can be a nice distraction for teams that might be trying to get you, but there's another cool trick that I've learned that is really great for dealing with other players too, and that is you can do a pseudo thumper by using the scan module on your Ornithopter. So if you actually go down and land on the sand where the sandworms are, I have found that if you use the scanner while you're on the ground, worms absolutely hate it. It drives them into a frenzy. It's almost like a thumper light. It is very, very good. And so if you feel like players are coming or you want to kind of like add some pressure to it, what I'll do is I'll land down on the sand and then just scan a few times. And by doing this, you end up bringing a lot of worms to your area in the deep desert, and this gets them real pissed off, and then you can fly away. And so if other players are landing trying to take you out, or you could like land, scan, and then land, and then put your Ornithopter away, and then run into like the rock areas and hide, and just force like ground combat where you're actually using your weapons, that in a lot of cases can save the day as well. Now when it comes to the deep desert, I think it's super useful to be able to bring, I mean, obviously you need to bring a compactor to get spice if you need to, and then you need at least a Mark V cut array in order to do titanium and stravidium. But I think it's also very important to bring, I usually bring at least 2 vehicle cells along with me, a full spool of 500 welding wire for repairs, bring defense, you know, keep yourself covered. And I also strongly recommend wearing at least like combat armor. Like I wouldn't bring a still suit, just bring a leader john with enough water to keep yourself safe because there's no water in the deep desert. But your natural armor value is going to be very important for keeping yourself alive. So light is what I prefer in case I get into a melee encounter, but you can also bring heavy as well. And the more armor you have, the more likely you are to avoid being one-shot, which helps a lot in trying to survive when you're out there. Aside from that, I usually will spend my time scanning the areas and just looking for the high-tier resources. And then if I hear a ship crash, I will like go check it out, see if it's available, grab it, grab the panels, get the details, and then also if there's a spice plume that pops up, I'll go check it out. I generally try to avoid the granddaddy spice, and that is where a ringmouth worm will appear and a very large area of spice will appear. Depending on the server world that you're on, you might actually end up that attracts the big groups, like the large PvP groups, the people that have like heavy Ornithopters, medium Ornithopters, they bring a sand crawler and they get all the spice. Those people usually will run strapped. They have at least 1 or 2 Ornithopters built with boosters and with rocket pods, and anyone that gets close, they will shoot them down indiscriminately. So I tend to avoid it, but sometimes you get other solo players that are there just hanging out, and you can hang out with them and get some spice, but you want to kind of approach it cautiously. And keep in mind that while you're out here is a good time to do lands red. So if you see opportunities where a task is revealed, capture something for your guild or your faction, and then try to grab materials that you know you can't get at Haga Basin. Like I won't fill up on aluminum out here or basalt or whatever. I will only get the highest value materials that I can only get in the deep desert and fill up on those. Now, if you wanted to be frisky, you could run a medium assault Ornithopter with more storage. It does have a slower takeoff time and a slower glide speed, which means that if you had to run away, if there's someone in a scout Ornithopter with rocket pods, you're not going to be able to outrun them. They will catch up to you and they will keep rocketing you. You'll have more hull armor to absorb damage, but again, again, if they can keep up with you over such a large distance or space, it can really put you at a disadvantage if you can't escape when you really need to. Also keep in mind that all vehicles in the game are modular, which means that if you start with a Mark IV Ornithopter, aluminum tier 4, you could actually just upgrade the wings and the engine as you move to tier 5 or tier 6. I've done this a few times as well, where you have an older Ornithopter, but you unlock a higher tier with a higher version. You can just slot in like the Mark VI wings and the Mark VI engine, which is less burden on you resource-wise than a full Ornithopter, but it will give you that extra speed that you need and will be a fresh set of wings with a fresh, maximum durability on it as well, which is super useful. And ultimately, it's all about being a scavenger. You want to avoid conflict as much as possible. I also tend to stay away from the PvP areas if I'm, loaded with storage containers and I'm just trying to get materials rather than just going for pure combat. I will tend to try and avoid confrontation as much as possible because you don't know how many people are in the group, you don't know how deep they're rolling or what they're strapped with, and oftentimes losing your Ornithopter or getting killed out in the deep desert can be quite devastating, so you want to kind of like play it by ear. You can see even when I see the spice field, I will just do a full 360. I'll wait to see if I hear anything. If no one's approaching, you land, you jump, you grab what you need, and you get right back to it. That's what we've got for today. If you're looking for more Dune Awakening guides, let me know what you'd like me to cover. I can also do more of a guide on dogfighting and actually winning those fights if you need to. The rocket system isn't the most advanced in the game. It's not going to be like a Star Citizen Elite Dangerous kind of setup, but there are some tips and tricks that you can use to stay alive and beat other players with your rocket pods as well. So let me know what you're looking forward to in the future. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.